You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Chris in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, TV shows, games, books, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 657, where tonight we're going to be talking about the first 25 minutes of the Mandalorian screener that Chris, who's with me tonight, both got a chance to see back on May 4th. Chris, welcome back to the show. How are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Feeling better every day, and I'm happy to be back because I've been dying to talk about this for over a week now.
Yeah, it's been killing us and chomping at the bit to talk about all that. So we're going to get into all that here in just one second. But before we do, how about some shout outs to some very special folks that are near and dear to our hearts?
Yeah, we're talking about our Patreon members. We'll go ahead and call out new members again tonight. We are all the Republic new members, Jason and Zachary. And then our newest, now part of the tribe member, Krista. Thank you so much for your support. The rest of our now part of the tribe level is Krista, who we just mentioned, Will I Am, my girl Paisley, I've Got a Brad Feeling, Rita Reborn, Jacob, Josh, Uncle Leon, Sharkman Dan, Alex, Jackson, Daz, Rick, Danny, Mike Borda, Dante, and Kat, who is Vader's girl. Thank you so much for your support. And then we go up to our highest level of Patreon member, Delusions of Grandeur, with my guy, now this is Rod Racing, Rob, Steve, and my girl, Vanessa. Thank you so much for your support of the Cantina Cast. Coming up in our next few shows here on Sunday, May 16th, we're going to have From a Certain Point of View, and we're going to be bringing on some of our qualified Patreon members to give us their top 3 moments of Maul Shadow Lord. Reach us out through Patreon if you'd like to join us. You can be either on video, or if you're not comfortable being on video, you could just be audio. And we would love to have you on so that we can hear your top 3 moments of Maul Shadow Lord. On Monday, May 17th, we will be bringing you a public show, which is going to be The Mandalorian and Grogu, the final hype. We're going to be in the stretch run leading into the release of this movie, this long-awaited, long-anticipated movie. And we just want to get you caught up on everything that has brought us up to here in the way of hype for this movie. We'll have our Razor Crest prediction moments and what we won't get right. Obviously, we're going to make a lot of predictions and we're going to get a lot of them wrong. So come and hear us make a fool of ourselves. Then we're going to give away our first Mandalorian and Grogu poster that we obtained at the screening of the first 25 minutes of The Mandalorian and Grogu. We're going to go ahead and give that away on Monday, May 17th. And in order to win, all you have to do is either email us or send us a direct message via Patreon or social media of a question that you would like to have us answer about the movie or even the television show. The email address, if you choose to email us, is hellothere@cantinacast.com. Again, you can reach out to Albert. You can reach out to myself on social media. You can reach out to the CantinaCast social media account. Just any question that you have, let us know. We'll read it out on air and we'll answer it as best we can. And the winner of the poster for that particular show will be announced at the end of the show. And we will mail the posters to you, and they will be in a protective poster tube. So that way, when you get it, it's in pristine condition. And we have about 6 posters to give away in total. And again, we'll start that contest on Monday, May 17th with Mandalorian Grogu, the final hype show.
Yeah, and these are the official posters too. Like, these aren't like things that we made up. It's like a heavy stock. You can hear it. I'm holding it up right now for anybody that's watching the video feed. So it's got the IMAX, like the IMAX poster on one side, and then we've got the special art that was created just for the preview, which is here, which I think you and I agree, like, this is one of the cooler ones.
I think that's one of the better ones we've seen through this movie. So it's a nice little gift, a nice little prize for you guys to help take part in the show. Then coming Sunday, May 24th, hopefully by then we'll all have seen this movie that we've been waiting for a couple years now, and join us for our review of The Mandalorian and Grogu. And what we like to do then as well is we want to introduce a new rating scale so that we can rate these Star Wars projects from now on based on a certain rating scale. We don't necessarily know what that's going to be, but
work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and when it happens, we'll let you know. We don't want it just to be like, 4 out of 5 blasters or something like that, or 4 out of 5 lightsabers or something. We'll come up with something cool and original to give a rating for not just the movies, but also other content, video games, comic books, and whatnot. But we want to come up with something new and original, so look for that. Hopefully, we'll have it ready by May 24th when we have the Mandalorian and Grogu review.
Yep. I think that's it. That's at least everything we've got planned coming up here. So. And by the way, if you're interested in Patreon, you can head out to cantinacast.com/Patreon, or you can head out to patreon.com/thecantinacast. You can sign up for as little as $2 all the way up to $20 or something in there for everybody, whether you want audio, whether you want video. And there are a lot of shows from the back catalog that you have access to immediately that we've done. We've organized them all, so it's not just like a hot mess of things. So anything you guys could provide would certainly be helpful, because that's what keeps the show on the air and financially sustainable. So thank you so much again to all of our Patreon members. Definitely appreciate you guys doing that. Okay, let's get into our breakdown. So I thought what we could do is, why don't we start with our kind of non-spoiler first thoughts and impressions, having gone to the event. If for any of the Patreon members, if you've not had a chance, I did post like an 11-minute audio version of my initial reaction after I left the theater and went directly into my vehicle. I recorded that, so you'll probably hear some of that same stuff here now. But why don't you kick us off, and maybe let's talk about what the experience was for you, because you were somewhere else. We weren't together actually for this. You were traveling for work, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And saw it at a particular theater. What was the pre-show stuff like, and then the IMAX experience itself, because this is the first movie it's been filmed in IMAX, shown in IMAX, and then maybe your first impressions during the show, and then afterwards, the aftermath of it, all of it.
So beforehand, the theater that I went to was actually pretty low key. There were people in costume. They did have I guess the local chapter of the Mandalorian and Mercs put up a backdrop to take photos with them.
Okay.
But overall, it was pretty low key. The screening itself was, I would say, it was probably 98% full. Maybe I saw 3 to 4 seats not taken. It wasn't definitely a situation where they had to turn people away like a lot of people thought we would have.
Right.
Because even though you were given a RSVP and you got confirmation, it's still first come, first serve, and they wanted to fill all the seats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 90, like I said, 98% full, maybe about 4 seats that were empty, and they were all up in the front. So then we get started, and what was great is that they had the typical commercial pre-show thing happening, but they didn't show any trailers. They just went straight to it. It's like when it was time to start, we saw the Lucasfilm logo, and then away we went.
Yeah.
So I guess my first impressions for a non-spoiler, and then obviously we'll get into more detailed, which will obviously be spoilers, was I thought what this did well is that it put together a lot of the content that we've already seen in trailers and commercials. I'm sure everyone here has seen the media onslaught for Mandalorian and Grogu has been going full speed ahead for about the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, it's been relentless.
Exactly. I mean, it's like if you follow social media, Lucasfilm and Star Wars official social media accounts, they're dropping new footage almost daily. Even if it's just a scene or two, they're dropping something new almost daily. But they're doing a good job of not having it give away too much. And so what this did, it kind of took a lot of those scenes that we saw or that we've seen in trailers and commercials and web shorts and whatnot, and actually put them together. And that actually is what makes up the beginning of the movie, which is great in my opinion. I'm like, yes. And what's great is that this now kind of gives us an idea of what the theme of this movie is going to be. Because I know, Albert, you and I have had this discussion. It's like, okay, we know it's Mando. We know it's Grogu. We know he's hunting stuff. but
Yeah.
what is the overall purpose of this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this gives us a little bit more clarity because we have talks with the Sigourney Weaver character. I forgot her name.
Colonel Ward.
Colonel Ward. Yes, exactly. And they give us some more context on that. I'm not going to discuss it yet. But so it put a lot of that into perspective. One of our favorite characters shows up and has several lines in the first 25 minutes, and that was a cool thing. A lot of folks applauded when this particular character showed up and started speaking.
Yep.
But I think the best is that we did get a bit of information at the end, and it's kind of ironic when we got that information. The preview ended, so we got some information about one of the characters that has been talked about for years now, that is in this movie, and we'll get to that when we get to the spoiler section. But overall, I thought if this is the beginning of the movie, this is a great start.
Yeah.
Again, nothing really like caught me because I would say probably 99% of the footage in this first 25 minutes we've seen already, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the footage itself didn't shock and awe me, but what did impress me and what I did enjoy seeing and it got me excited is now all of those scenes are in context and they flow from one to the other. So seeing all that together, it got me hyped for this movie. And now with the little bit of information that they dropped right at the end of that preview, I have so many more questions. But we only have to wait 8 days for them to get answered. So that I thought it was a great start. I was very happy with the way this movie started, I should say. Talking about IMAX, yes, this movie takes advantage of IMAX.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Yep.
It is made for IMAX. I recommend everybody at least. Actually, I don't want to say at least. Your first viewing of this movie needs to be in IMAX.
If you can still get tickets for IMAX.
If you can still get tickets. Obviously see it whenever you can, but you have to see it in IMAX. It is built for the thing. It's not like where you stretch and you have the dark bar at the top and the bottom. The whole aspect ratio of how this was filmed takes over. It uses the whole entire IMAX screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if the rest of the movies like this, we're in for a excellent ride visually. I thought Filoni and Jon Favreau delivered on the promise that they're making something for the big screen. They're just not porting the television show to the big screen. And I think they proved that without a shadow of a doubt, just with this 25 minutes. So if you had any concerns about that, I can confidently say you don't have to worry about that. Now, for other content, the story, the acting or whatever, that's still up in the air. But from what I saw in those first 25 minutes, they nailed everything from, Colonel Ward, the Imperial actors, and then, the Imperial warlord that's being chased, to the, I guess the leaders that the Imperial warlord is trying to shake down. All of that acting was great. And obviously the dialogue from Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin was great. Grogu's reaction was great. If for just a preview, like I said, I got probably maybe 4 to 5 times where the audience applauded, when something happened on screen, and we'll talk more about that. But
yeah,
I can't say anything bad about it. I think it was great. I think it's a great start, and then it did what it had to do for me. It got me even more excited to see this complete movie.
Yeah. So my experience is a little bit different. So I got to see it here in Austin. It was at a theater that has traditionally shown a lot of the Fandango preview type events like this, the fan events. And I will say this: your theater, I know we were texting back and forth. Our theater was not full. And I've been to a number of these events here. The most recent one that was Star Wars related was The Acolyte. So when they were showing the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte, they showed it at this exact same theater. I remember waiting in line with most of those same people. And they were turning people away. Like it was absolutely completely full. And this was not that experience. I'm glad to hear that your theater was full, because that at least gives me hope that, okay, maybe it was a fluke or maybe there was something else going on. I'm not really sure, but it was surprising not to see it. I would say at best, if I was being generous, we were probably at like 40% capacity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that's after they started, they had a whole like 3 or 4 rows right in the middle that were tagged for VIP. So that was like media, friends of friends, and I don't know who else was considered to be that part of that. But they weren't putting seats in there. So they started pulling off all the VIP tags, right? So for other people to kind of move and get a better seat if you wanted. So that was kind of a little unsettling at first, because, I'm worried that people are just not going to be as interested in this movie as, I would hope them to be. But overall, like getting there, it was great. There was they had the sign up, the poster table there. There was a guy there was from Fandango or somebody else, Disney, I think it was actually. He was from Disney. And they were talking about how afterwards you could do a survey. They had a backdrop. They had 2 backdrops. They had one that was like the Mandalorian logo. They had one with like this big poster thing with the Mando and Grogu on there. And then about 30 minutes before the show started, they've had somebody that came out as the Mandalorian. He had like a little animatronic Grogu as well. And he was, taking pictures with everybody. So people were heading out there and getting their pictures taken, which was a lot of fun. We got into the theater. They kind of gave us the whole lowdown about like, hey, you can't record, and we've got people monitoring that whole thing. That probably scared a lot of people, of course.
Yeah. I want to say something. This was funny. The person from I guess who was exhibiting the preview from Disney, anti-piracy officers. That's what they call them. Anti-piracy.
You had your Meta glasses on, didn't you? Did they make you take those off?
They made me turn them off.
Turn them off. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Because if they're prescription, they really can't do much about that.
Yeah. I told them they were prescription, and they're just like, okay, well, please turn them off in front of me right now.
Yeah.
And the one thing about the Meta glasses is that they're, when you're recording there's a big old white light that shines on it. You can't, and the glasses, there's not a way to turn that off. So they would see it.
Oh, wow.
But okay. Yeah, I turned it off, and I wasn't given any grief for it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so overall, we got into the movie, and I guess my thoughts and impressions are this movie was, the first 25 minutes is so like neck break fast in terms of how much happens in that first 25 minutes. It is pure adrenaline, pure action. It's everything that you loved about the Mando fights and combat sequences and the choreography, just ratcheted up. I mean, it is testosterone full blast for that first 25 minutes. They never really let up at any point. That bodes well, because it at least gets people excited about the movie. I will say this too. You're right. Like at the time that the movie came out, if you'd already seen the D23 exclusive footage and you were at Celebration in London, you probably saw, I'm going to say about 80% of what was shown already. But to your point, it was kind of piecemealed, right? It was never in succession. You didn't see really the whole thing end to end. And so for people like me and you seeing this, not really that surprising. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it was great. Don't get me wrong. Like it was fantastic. Right. I loved every minute of it. But if you had not seen either one of those, this was an adrenaline rush, because this was some of the best stuff. I mean, you think about the reactions that we had from D23 when that was shown. I mean, people lost their minds at that D23 footage. And we got to see it all here, and it wasn't pirated. It was in full IMAX with full sound. It was just, I mean, I'm, again, me aside, anybody watching that first 25 minutes is going to get hooked and really want to know what's going to happen with this movie. It's just, it really is good from beginning to end. Was it as surprising, like you said? No, not necessarily for us. And now, as of this recording, so here we are, May 13th, I actually went back and looked, and pretty much, I would say 95 to 98% of that first 25 minutes is cobbled together in all of the stuff that they've already released. There's a Mandalorian and Grogu, like first look or something like that on Disney Plus. That has a huge chunk of it. They released another portion of it on YouTube just like a couple days ago that carries up with the whole Signori, Colonel Ward's character, which she's kind of pitching and all that. We get answers to like the Razor Crest, and we get some stuff from Zeb. We get all of his lines. I mean, it's all there. Someone could literally probably stitch this whole thing together and give you that first 25 minutes. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I still feel special that I got to see the first 25, but it just goes to show you how big that marketing machine and arm is of Disney, that they're willing to go and do so much of this just to get people excited about it, which I think it's doing. We'll have to cover that when we get to the final hype show. But afterwards, I felt like people in our audience were really excited. I didn't want to leave. Like, the way they ended it and what they ended it on was really what I wanted them to start digging into, because it was the first thing that popped in my mind. And you get Mando actually say what everybody's thinking when it happens, Exactly. And so it cut away from that. So all in all, I would say, if the rest of this movie, which I think is clocking in at what, 2 hours and is it 12 minutes?
I think it's 2 hours and 12 minutes. So it's an over 2-hour movie, which bodes well. For a Star Wars movie. Exactly. They've been running a little bit longer than that here lately, but for me, the sweet spot is between 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes, and this hits the sweet spot.
Yeah, so I think if the rest of the movie is like this, it's gonna be amazing, and everything about it, like the directing was great. I think I've mentioned this a few times. Jon Favreau, I love some of the stuff he does, and some things I haven't really enjoyed that much. If I'm just being completely candid, from his directing. And there was nothing in here that was like, didn't feel Star Wars or didn't feel like The Mandalorian, aka Jon Favreau. It did feel larger than the small TV screen, and I think a lot of that was chalked up to IMAX, of course, the format. I mean, it's the screen that we were on was so massive. I mean, you were just like, embedded in this event that was going on. The audio was really great. The freaking music, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, this guy, what's his name, Goranson. Ludwig, oh my goodness, he kills it again. He's got themes of the songs that he's got, of our main title themes that he plays with. There's some new music that we'll talk about in a little bit that's introduced at one point in that first 25-minute mark that I need to get somehow on a playlist, right? But everything about it technically is pretty special. And the last thing I'll say about it is the puppeteer work. The fact that it looks like a puppet is, I've always said, I love that the most. I don't need full CGI. I don't need to make it look real. There are some really great Grogu moments. If Grogu is someone that you are going to see this movie for, you're going to be satisfied, because he had a lot of great moments just in that first 25 minutes. I can't imagine how many more he's got throughout the rest of the movie.
Absolutely. I thought he did have a couple of scenes that we hadn't seen before. The way that they have him, animate and emote, it's to another level from the TV show. We have a chat here from Strong Mustachio. My theater sold out. I couldn't even get tickets to it. I think that's what I've heard from a lot of other people that I talked to that were able to attend the screening. I guess Austin was just a fluke this time, because I know I went to I believe I went to that same Skeleton Crew viewing, and I can say that it was probably 80% full. It wasn't full.
That was at Cinemark that we saw that one at.
Exactly right, and it was relatively full. But like I said, I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the whole place was packed. Like I said, maybe I saw 3 or 4 chairs that weren't filled when the lights went dim. So maybe Austin just had a fluke this time, but I have been hearing that in other cities where they've had it, I heard from a friend of mine that's out in the LA area, and I believe they had the preview there at like 5 theaters. And from what I heard is that all of them sold out of their tickets, because people were trying to get tickets last minute, because they just found out about it on May 4th. And no, they were already all filled to capacity. So maybe it's just an Austin thing. Maybe Austin was doing other May the 4th stuff, and they kind of passed on it. But what makes, because that would be concerning to me. Like, if Austin was like that, my theater was like that, and I heard other theaters were like half full, I'd have been like, okay, that doesn't bode well.
Exactly.
I think Austin was just an outlier this time, and I think folks are really coming into the final hype of this, if I want to use that term, and are excited for this movie.
Even if it wasn't an outlier, I would say that there was enough in that 25 minutes that I can say with all honesty, sincerity, that this is a good 25 minutes. Like, this is a great start, and we should be excited about this movie. I can't see it flopping based on that first 25. I mean, it could still take a nosedive, right? We just don't know. When Strong Masasio, I was actually messaging on social media saying, I have an extra ticket. If anybody's in the Austin area, it's yours. Just come out to Barton Creek and you can have the ticket. And I didn't have any takers on it. So I had another ticket. If you're in the Austin area, hit me up next time. Okay. So that's the non-spoiler thoughts and impressions. Definitely, if you don't have your tickets already, go get them. It's definitely going to be worth it, at least from my opinion, maybe Chris's opinion as well, based on that first 25, but no guarantees. All right, let's get into the spoiler stuff. So from here on out, we're going to talk about everything that happened, almost line by line at times. We'll talk about the scenes and break everything down. Just to kind of kick it off, once the lights went out, we got the message about no recording. The first thing we got was Jon Favreau. He comes on and says, "Hey, happy May the 4th be with you. We're so excited that you're here, and we hope this movie," he says something like, "We hope this movie hits the goal of bringing Star Wars to the big screen and an experience like, you've never seen before," or whatever, right? He's talking about the IMAX format. He says, hopefully by, we'll see you guys here on May 22nd. And then he disappears. And then we get the IMAX countdown. Did they do that for you too? The special IMAX thing that they did? They premiered that like 9 months ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. But they showed that where it's counting down 5, 4, and it's like, the Mandalorians making Beskar. Like you can see the urn, the fire thing there to burn down at Beskar. Anyways, once that's gone, we get our opening crawl. Now, the opening crawl, well, it's not technically a crawl. It's just 2 paragraphs that pop up. I'll read those here in a second. If you want to see them, if you go to the Disney Plus sneak peek thing, they've got the exact wording there. So that's the first thing that pops up. We get the Mando music, and it reads as, "The evil galactic empire has fallen. Ex-Imperial warlords remain scattered throughout the galaxy, plotting the Empire's return. The fledgling New Republic has begun to reunite the galaxy. In the lawless Outer Rim, the Mandalorian and his young apprentice Grogu work to hunt down these Imperial fugitives." And they do the 4 dots of the ellipsis, which is good. That's a Star Wars thing, so they got that right. That goes away, and we open up it with the very first scene, which is we get to, if you've seen the trailers, the trailers and all the previews, there is a scene in there, and we've broken this down on a couple of things already now, but there's a scene on some kind of a ice planet. They never say it's Hoth. I know there was a lot of speculation. Are we going back to Hoth? Are we not? I don't think we are. It just feels like that because they didn't even mention it. They would have mentioned it had that really been the case. But we open up with a table, and you've got a warlord that's sitting behind there. If I'm not mistaken, he is one of the warlords that appears in season 3 of The Mandalorian via Holo. Yes. I don't remember. I don't think they ever said his name, but it's that same guy. And he's kind of talking to these like 4 or 5 civilian leaders. And he says, "I think we can all agree that things were better with the Empire." It's a lot of propaganda is basically what he's telling them. He says that, that they are there to protect their communities, they being the Empire, and that he considers them the lucky few, right? Because they're being still guarded by the Empire. But he goes, "But there's a price." And then he says, "Long live the Empire." Nobody says it in return. And then he kind of looks at them, and then they reluctantly say, "Long live the Empire." Like they have no choice, really. I mean, it's like Stockholm Syndrome, basically, at this point. And then he says, "And now for the bad news." And he goes on to tell them that, look, we're going to have to raise the tribute. So at this point, they are basically thugs, right? Gangsters. Right. They're operating as gangsters. These warlords are out there flying under the flag of the Empire, although they don't serve the Empire because it's gone, but they're providing, protection, if you will, for a price. And that's the tribute that they have to pay. And he's there to tell them at this table that, look, we're going to have to raise the price of the tribute. One of the guys is like, "Wait a minute, we're not making any money here. There's pirates and thugs everywhere now." And that's because, the big vacuum of the Empire is gone. This vacuum has been created. And so pirates are running rampant and exploiting people. And the warlord kind of takes that personal. He's like, "What is it? Are we not good enough? Are we not providing, the protection that you want," kind of thing. And as he's saying that, he's pulling out his blaster. And before he can even, apologize or say, no, that's not exactly what he was trying to say, the warlord shoots him cold dead right there in front of the other ones. And that shocks everybody else at the table. And he talks about how they need to come up with solutions to solve those problems, which the Empire is supposed to be protecting them from, not excuses. pretty dramatic scene. So let's just pause there. So I think that at least sets the stage of where the Empire is. I suspect we've got more of these warlords that are kind of scattered around. If I had to put on my like prediction hat, and maybe this is trying to will things into place. You know, you and I have been talking about what is going on here. Like, what's the big bad? What's the big goal during this era? What are we working towards? War are we, or climax are we moving towards? It almost sounds like it is starting to lean towards like a return of Thrawn, and Thrawn reuniting the remnants of this galaxy, or of the Empire. You know what I mean? Because they're so scattered. That's the only way that's going to happen. It's similar to what Moff Gideon was trying to do, right? He was trying to say, I've got the sword, screw Thrawn. He's not even around. You know, I'm your leader kind of thing. So it looks like that may be the direction it's going in. But any thoughts on that before we get into Mando's attack?
No, I think you probably, that would be the prediction that I would have, is that yes, these these Imperial warlords are trying to keep the reputation of the Empire alive via, essentially, crime boss type thug methods of, like, protection payments and whatnot, and still having people live in fear of the Empire, even what it is right at that time, which is just some scattered, groups around the galaxy. Um, and I do think that, yes, and now that Gideon is gone, there is kind of that vacuum. And so it's like, they're doing their own thing. But I do think, because they're like that, obviously they're disconjointed. And if they bring Thrawn back, which we know he's already, from the end of Ahsoka season 1, he's already back into the standard universe or standard galaxy. We know he'll probably be there to try to bring everyone together under his thumb. But I don't know if that's something we'll get any reference to in this movie. But it sounds like this lays like the foundation of what at least part of this movie is going to be about, and that's cleaning up those Imperial warlords.
Yeah. We get so that's interrupted by, there's a code red, essentially. One of the stormtroopers, our snow troopers, walks up and is like, hey, there's been a breach, or we've got a perimeter alert, right? And that kind of alerts the audience that, okay, the Mando's here, essentially. And he tells the people that are gathered at the table, there's nothing to worry about. I'm going to send reinforcements. And then we get a couple of quick shots of where, like, Mando's in the dark and he's slowly taking people out. Think of like Aliens, or some kind of a ninja that's stalking him at night, and he's just pulling people out, yanking them. They're getting shot and falling down. It's causing a lot of fear. The warlord is starting to get scared because people are just disappearing off the radio because Mando's making his way towards him. And when he realizes that his life's in danger, he then reaches down, he opens up some drawer, he pulls out like 4 or 5 blasters and throws them, hands them out to all of the civilians, and basically tells them to lay down cover fire. And these guys are civilians. They're not like, they're not military people. And so they're like scared themselves, and they're holding these blasters. He walks away. He walks over to kind of like an escape elevator or something. And he says, long live the Empire, jumps in the elevator and then heads down. At that point, we get Mando coming down into that room now. You can see he's kind of coming down the hallway. If you've seen the trailer, this is the moment where he kind of lays down some of that fuel or whatever it is from his flamethrower. And then he ignites it, shoots one guy, turns that blaster from that snow trooper to the other guy, shoots him with that blaster, and he makes this really grand entrance. And then he takes out 2 of the guards that are over by the civilians, and the civilians never attack. I mean, they're absolutely shocked and surprised. He doesn't attack any of them because he realizes they're just victims here, right? They're hostages, essentially. He runs over to the elevator and he blasts the controls. It opens up the elevator, and then he drops down some charges down into the shaft there to kind of blow it up, hoping that he's going to take out that leader.
There was a funny moment right before that where he takes out the 2 troopers that were by that table where the civilians were, and then immediately when they go down, I think 3 of them raise their hand and one of them points to the elevator. That's where he went. Yeah.
That's right.
And I thought, and that got, actually, I chuckled. I thought that was, that was funny, but it wasn't like ha 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 funny. Yeah. There are some people that lost their stuff when they saw that.
I did on some parts. Yeah. There were some funny moments that I think it was all the Grogu parts because I'm a sucker for that little kid. But yeah, you're right. I forgot about that part where he's like, yeah. So he goes down there, blows that up. And then we cut over to Grogu. So when they were sending out reinforcements, I failed to mention there was the mouse droid was dispatched, right? And it's got like a camera on there. We get a cool shot like at the level of the mouse droid where it's kind of going through the hallway, and you can see it as like through the cam, the video feed, if you will, of the mouse droid. And there's moments in there where he's just capturing Mando coming out of the dark and kicking people, and you don't really see it all. I mean, it's Mando, it's the Mando, but you can't really tell what's happening outside that he's just killing snowtroopers. But eventually that mouse droid comes out and runs into Grogu, who's waiting outside in the snow area, outside like the compound, like the main door there. And so we have a moment there where Grogu uses the Force. He lifts up the mouse droid. We get a theme that's similar to the Force theme. Like, right. Mm-hmm. It's very similar. You can tell it's like whimsical, right? And he's using the Force to do it. But he lifts it up, and then he kind of like makes it explode almost accidentally. Like he almost looks surprised, like I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, kind of thing. And then we get a little funny moment that you've probably seen in the trailers where the wheel rolls by Grogu and he just kind of turns and looks at it. And that got a chuckle from the audience during that moment. So after that happens, while that's happening, I should say, there is an ATRT, which will be the one that they'll use to go down the side of the hill in just a second, that comes up where Grogu is. Grogu then gets behind something. He takes cover behind something, and that pilot of that ATRT jumps out, and he's got the same, like, what is it called? Like the finder. You remember when Han had it in The Empire Strikes Back when he was looking for Luke?
Looking for Luke, yeah.
Yeah, it's that same thing. He's holding that same box with the same antennas, and he's walking closer and closer to Grogu, who's kind of like, hiding behind this thing so he doesn't get detected. While that's happening, the Mandalorian, so Din, jumps into the ATRT. It lifts up, and then he blasts this guy that's like not even like 20 feet away with his ATRT, and there's like nothing left of him. He just obliterates him right there where Grogu is. And so at that point, that's when you get the line from the trailer where he says, "Come on, what are you doing? Let's go." Or what was something like, I can't remember what the line is, but he says, "What are you doing? What are you waiting for? Hop on."
Exactly. Hop on. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they jump on, and then we get the ATRT run. This was a really, so this is one of the scenes that, we saw it during the D23 footage, but this was like the full length of it. Like, I don't think that was actually done. This was much longer than we got there, but they are going down like at full speed. Grogu looks completely shocked and, scared out of his mind as they're going down there. And there's the music there was really cool too. It didn't sound like the normal Mandalorian theme song. It was some new piece that was added for that moment when they're going down. He says, "Hang on." So it's a lot of action. They're heading down there. When they get to the very bottom, that's when they run into those 3 AT-ATs. And this sequence was a little bit longer too. Like, they've shown bits and pieces of it, but it's actually a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, because if you think about it, he has to make his way from the very first AT-AT that shoots at him, or AT-AT, sorry if any of you youngins are around. The first one shoots at him, and they end up dodging a number of them. They run under the first one, which has the Warlord in it. He's in that first AT-AT. They go through and past the second one, and right when they get to about the third one, that's when one of the AT-AT legs comes down. They jettison out with the backpack, and that ATRT gets smashed by the Walker leg. All right, this is all action-packed. I'm not going to get into the details. It's a great sequence. And then he lays a bunch of detonators all over that AT-AT, and it blows up, and that's what sends that first one that we see in the trailer kind of tumbling over on its side and down into the crevasse down there. That's what you're seeing there. So there's only 2 left at that point. You want to get in? Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just saying that, yeah, that was that first one that falls down that ravine, and then we leave the 2, and then, hilarity kind of ensues with the Warlord and the driver captain of the AT-AT.
Yeah, because he's scared. Like, the entire time, the Warlord is scared. He's like, "Did we get him? Where is he?" Like, he's fearful that the Mandalorian is going to get him, and you hear like, "Oh, he's under us, sir," or "He's over here now." You're kind of hearing the chatter, and he's really getting freaked out by all of this. And then we get a shot where he then goes into the second one, and this is the one. This is like the money shot, as far as I'm concerned. It is a one-shot action sequence where we get to see the Mandalorian just fully utilize everything at his disposal. And he's just making his way through the AT-AT. Like, there's a commander that says, "All forces get ready," because they realize he's now breached the hull of the AT-AT, and they're starting to run and grab their blasters and get ready. And then we get this one-shot sequence where he's throwing daggers, he's punching, he's kicking, he uses his cable, he uses his flamethrower, he uses his blaster multiple times, but he is just mowing through these stormtroopers, working his way towards the front where that commander is of that second AT-AT. And then we get a kind of a comedic sequence there, because once he gets there, they close the door on him, the final door, so he can't get into the cabin. And you can just see his face like, holy crap, he just took out my entire platoon in a matter of seconds, and he witnessed it all.
Right.
And the entire time, the warlord's just screaming at him like, where is he? Where is he? Is he dead? Is he dead? And
he makes like a face like,
I'm dead.
I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not going to go exactly.
Well. Right.
He says, and so they've located him, and then you hear like the clank, clank, clank up on top, like he's jumped onto the roof, and he tells the warlord he's on the roof. When he says that, we cut over to the first AT-AT, and that's where the warlord then tells the AT-AT pilots, hey, get up there. And this is where the audience laughed too, because the pilot was like, we're pilots.
We're pilots. Yeah.
We're pilots. What do you want us to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he's got him at gunpoint or blaster point. And so they end up going up there, which is funny. Well, we don't really see what happens essentially, specifically to the second AT-AT, but the commander that's in that second one starts saying, he's breached the hole. He's breached the hole. And next thing you know, there's a big explosion out of the head of that second AT-AT, and it falls kind of face down, similar to the big one that falls down in Empire Strikes Back, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of face forward. That falls down. And then as that's going down, you see Mando and Grogu fly out. They land on the first AT-AT now. He kind of like punches or shoves one off the AT-AT, and he falls over. Then he flames the second one, which is what we use for the title cards here. He flames that second one, and he does like his best "This is Sparta" impression, where he just like kicks that dude right off, and you get to see him tumbling down like the ravine down there, which is pretty sad. But he takes out those two, jumps in the cockpit of that first AT-AT. When he jumps in there, the warlord's now gone, and he's looking around. He goes down a hatch and realizes that the warlord now has jumped in, which I didn't know this existed. Shame on me if it does. But they've got basically some kind of like I'm gonna call it an escape pod,
right?
But it's really a vehicle because it has wings that open up on it,
right?
But the warlord's jumped inside of that. He ejects and takes off, flies away, and when he leaves, there's a ton of detonators on the ground that he's planted as a trap to kind of blow up that last AT-AT with Mando there. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and then what's happening is Mando's like checking out something, and Grogu just is on his back, like just keeps like.
Yeah, he's trying to use like the targeting system. Yeah. He wants to take a shot.
He wants to take a shot at him. Yeah. And then he keeps tapping at him because the beeping of the detonators keep getting faster and faster, meaning it's about to blow up. So finally, what happens is right at the last second, of course, Mando's able to shoot him down. Then he's able to use his jetpack to get up out of there. And here's where it's like really cool. And here's where the first, in my viewing, this was a second applause. The first one actually came when at the end of essentially, which was Mando's hallway scene, which you described earlier, where he just mows through those snow troopers to get to the cockpit of that second AT-AT. Right. He's able to escape the AT-AT as it blows up because of all the detonators. He shoots down the Imperial Warlord's ship, which pays homage to a mini toy that was released by Kenner back in the Empire Strikes Back collection, which we never, they released a lot of mini vehicles that we never saw in the movie. But that essentially that escape vehicle was almost a
direct replica of it.
Yeah, a direct replica of that toy. Okay. But I digress. We see them go up, and then we see this U-wing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he flies up into the U-wing, into the hatch of the U-wing, and who's piloting the U-wing?
My boy Zeb.
And that's got the next big round of applause in our showing. So everyone loved it. I applause too. I mean, I knew he was in the movie. I didn't expect to see him that soon. And so I was pretty surprised to see him. So I clapped too.
Yeah. And they did. Yeah. Like I was talking to some folks about this. We'd already seen him in the television show, which I thought they did a really good job with. The reason why we didn't see him as much in the television show is because it's a pretty costly feat to get Zeb animated the way they did. So it made sense that we only saw him from the body up, and it was very limited in the number of shots that we saw him in season 3. For this movie, though, you're going to see him full size, and they've got his walk down, like the gait that he has when he walks from Rebels. They've nailed that perfectly. The CGI doesn't look like they really cut any corners. It looks pretty good. Looks very good, I would say. It's, of course, the voice is spot on because, it's Zeb. But he actually has a line once they fly in there where he says, it's better if you bring them in alive. And then that's when Mando says, "You okay?" And he looks over to Grogu, and Grogu coughs a bunch of snow out of his mouth, right? And I got a couple of laughs there. And he says, and then Zeb continues on with what he's saying. He says, "You see, you catch the bad guys, they tell us where the other bad guys are." And that's when Mando says things went a little sideways. And then they fly off, they go into hyperspace. And then when they go into hyperspace, we get the title screen of The Mandalorian. And then it pauses, and then it says, "And Grogu." We get the main theme from the television show play. But I really love this part. The way they did it is once that starts, they use that music to give us the credits. Right. So the credits now roll, directed by, written by, starring, Pedro Pascal and yada, yada. They start listing everybody. But it's actually kind of it's a montage of a Delphi base. And so if you've seen some of the trailers and footage, you've seen these moments where you see like X-Wings being fueled and RT units rolling out on a pad somewhere and a Y-Wing there. That is what they do. They've set all the credits to a montage of them coming into a Delphi base, docking, getting out, walking down like the tarmac, if you will. They've got like a slow motion piece in there where you can see Mando and Grogu along with Zeb, and they're just kind of walking towards you. That's when you get to see the gait of him, the slow motion feature of it. You can see the detail of him. And they're making their way basically over to Colonel Ward's. But that whole action sequence, that little montage is really cool. I love the way they did that with the credits.
Yeah, I liked it. It's like it had me because it had the whole apocalypse now with the X-Wings.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yes.
We got it. We got the title card. And then this kind of shows that I think Star Wars movies are kind of evolving a little bit. We talked a little bit about this in other shows, Albert, about how, for when Rise of Skywalker was about to come out, Kathleen Kennedy came out and said, "Hey, we're kind of abandoning the Wilhelm scream. We're kind of abandoning the type of, transition wipes. We're going to kind of just, make a movie not around these things that have to quote unquote be in a Star Wars movie." Which one of the things that is typically not in a Star Wars movie is opening credits. Really, we start with the crawl and then we don't get any credits till the end of the movie.
Yeah,
so
right.
So that was actually a surprise for me to see these the credits, at least an opening credits at the opening of a Star Wars movie. I did talk to somebody else and they go, well, maybe they had to do it because they're not going to show credits at the end of this preview, which they showed a limited number of credits, but I don't think they showed exactly what we would see at the end of the movie. So yeah, that was a surprise to see because with a Star Wars movie, I don't expect to see credits at the beginning of the movie.
No, I would, yeah. And that's certainly was the case. And by the way, I want to be clear. When the movie let out, I went down to the guy that was there from Disney and I asked him, "Did we watch the actual first 25 minutes of the movie?" He said yes. So unequivocally, this was not something they piecemealed together. This wasn't credits that they did for this preview. We watched and witnessed the very first 25 minutes of the movie beginning to end, right? So that's it is. So it's very different. It is different. But to your point, we have talked about this. I like the evolution. It's been a slow burn. It hasn't been something very drastic. Mm-hmm. I've been happy with all the changes that they made. I really, really love this sequence. As silly as that may sound, as trivial as that may sound, the way they use the music, the montage, the scenery, the footage, everything that they were shooting, it just worked. Like it worked really, really well, and it felt like The Mandalorian. I don't know if it felt like Star Wars, but it definitely felt like The Mandalorian, and it wasn't. I was never taken out of it. Now I understand there are going to be George Lucas purists out there. They're going to have take issue with this, and I totally get it. Not that I agree, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah, I think people will be in for a big surprise when it happens. It's very cool.
And another thing we want to take into account is that Jon Favreau is real big with SAG-AFTRA, and that's one of the things that particular union was irked by Lucas way back in the 70s. Yeah, because by their bylaws, the credits have to be at the beginning of the movie too.
Right. Yeah.
But he kind of like he like scoffed at it. They fined the heck out of him, and then ultimately he left those unions. So he's not even a part of that anymore. But I know John is still a big part of those unions, and that is probably why he did that. Or I don't want to say probably why. If it turns out that was a motivating factor for him to do that, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it was a bit of nostalgia too. Like, you get very nostalgia like feelings watching the intro. It feels like a throwback to some of the old 50s, 40s movies, right? In terms of how they opened, like the war movies. So I think that was probably most of it. But regardless, it was good. I enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys will too. All right. So let's get into the next piece of this. So he's on a Delphi base. They've walked in. They're about to walk in to go meet Colonel Ward. Zeb says the line, "Good luck. You're going to need it." It's interesting too, because he says that line when they're outside of Delphi base. In the D23 footage, when we first saw Zeb, he was in the Razor Crest and he says it. That still may happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but that would be 2 times that he says, "Good luck, you're going to need it." So maybe that's just kind of a running joke that they have, and this is the first time we hear it, him saying that. But he says that. They walk in, they meet Colonel Ward, they sit down at a table, and throughout this entire dialogue here, this is where Grogu is doing the whole force thing to pull in the snacks and the cookies, and she throws her hand on it to kind of stop him. So I won't get into all that because it is a funny little bit. But basically, she says messy. This was very messy, meaning the job they just did. He says the problem is we need information. Without it, we're never going to get to the bottom of what the Empire is up to. So this is our first clue as to where, what exposition and narrative and where the story is going to go. They are trying to find out what the Empire is up to. So they know they're out there. They know they're still around doing things, but they're trying to track down these warlords. Mando's response to this is, "I will take out every bad guy in your deck of cards." And this is where she responds back with, "This isn't about revenge. It's about preventing another war and protecting everything the rebellion fought for." So you gotta remember, her mind is that she's from this rebellious era, right? She served with Leia during that time, Holdo, all the other greats, Solo, everybody, right? So for her, she wants to make sure that doesn't just all go to waste and it's for naught, right? They don't want the Empire to resurface. I think this plays into the Ace of Staves that she talks about in just a second. But when she says that everything the rebellion fought for, he then asks, "Does this mean I'm not going to get paid for this one?" And she responds back, "You're getting paid all right. Come with me." They go out, and this is happening so fast. Like, they really don't spend a lot of time on some of these scenes.
Right, exactly.
And they go out to kind of like the docking area, and this is where we get to finally. They just rip the Band-Aid off. We get to know why there is a Razor Crest in this movie. She walks out. There's a Razor Crest completely restored in front of his eyes. I think he says something like "impressive," and then she mentions that there was an Imperial Commandant that when they captured him, he had a collection of old vehicles, and she knew that this was something that he liked, and so she went out and took it. She said she took it out for a spin herself, right? So she went and kicked the tires and drove around or flew it around, make sure it was really okay, and that she mentions that it's been rebuilt as well. So this has been fully restored. And then Mando's like, "Wait a minute, this is a lot more than payment for that last job." And she says, "Well, let's call in an advance on your next mission." What next mission? Here's the second part. So this kind of couples with that first piece of knowing what the Empire is up to. She says, "Commander Coin, our missing Ace of Staves. No one knows what he looks like, and most believe him to be dead." And that's when she's showing Mando the card for Colonel Coin or Commander Coin, and there's no face on there. He says, "Not a lot to go on. What's the play?" He says, "I want you to go to Nal Hutta and meet the Hutts. They've agreed to lead us to him." All right, so pause there. So he's going to go to Nal Hutta, meet the twins. The twins are going to tell him how to find this Commander Coin. Not immediately, though, because the next part of it is she tells him the only way they're going to give us that information is they want you to do them a favor, right? Or us a favor, or they want us to do a favor. And that is to go find their nephew, Rod of the Hutt, who is the heir to Jabba the Hutt, who's being held, what's the word? I can't remember the word she used, like prisoner or slave.
Against his will?
Against his will is what she says. Yeah. And that's important because with the way this thing ends, that's when you're like, wait a second, none of this is really adding up. So he says, where is he? And she says, they'll tell you in person, meaning they'll tell you where Rod of the Hutt is in person. So he's got to go actually meet the twins. That's when she says, do you have a name? That she says it's Rod of the Hutt. And then she asks him, have you ever crossed Jabba the Hutt's path before? He says, I tried not to. So I don't know how to take that as in I tried not to, meaning I never did, or I tried not to, but I actually did. So I think it'd be really interesting if there was some experience there, or if he had some relationship, and maybe at some point we get Rod of the Hutt talking to Mando and he's telling him something about his father, or like, hey, I knew your father, or I crossed him one point, or you're like your father. I don't know. We may have something like that if he definitely had some contact with him back then. And then she says, okay, so this is where Commander Ward says, so do we have a deal? And he says, I only hunt down Imperial war criminals. I don't work for gangsters anymore, especially the Hutts. So there's something there, probably, remnants from the Mando series, of course. But there may be even more to that we don't know of. Maybe that'll surface up once he gets to talk to Rada. And that's when she says, you're right. You work for us. And right now, this is what we need you to do. If you don't want the job, I have nothing for you. And that's where she kind of leaves it like, hey, make this decision for yourself. I'm giving you the ship and you can continue to work for us. Even though it is for the Hutts, you're not working for them. You have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. Before he can really make a decision, Zeb is already loading up the Razor Crest to take off. And I think when he's, and Mando's looking over the ship, there's music playing. He's kind of getting real, reminiscing about the Razor Crest that he had. He's inspecting it, looking it over really closely. And then when he walks up there, he's like, Zeb says, come aboard. You may as well look around. I'll even let you fly it this time, as a joke kind of thing. And he says, I didn't say yes. And Zeb says, well, you didn't say no either. And then the best part, which got a huge chuckle, was when he walked into the Razor Crest for the first time, Grogu's already in the Razor Crest. And he's like jumping up and down in excitement on like a bed or something, right? Because he's happy to be in the Razor Crest all over again. So that was really cool. Let me finish this up and I'll let you kind of chime in here. But he says it looks, he talks about how it looks very similar. He's kind of impressed with all the restoration that's happened with it, and then he says a comment like, she's stock and she's clean. He fires it up and he's about to take off, and then the engines come down, and it's because Grogu, and I think we've seen this in the trailer, like he's pushing buttons or whatever, and he tells him, don't push buttons or never touch the buttons. There's a couple moments he fires up the engines again. We get a sequence of it taking off, and they blast off into hyperspace, headed for now Hutta. So thoughts on that?
No, I thought that was a perfect intro to the to us seeing his new Razor Crest. Also, it gives us an explanation on where it came from. That's one of the things that we have been asking ourselves, like, how does he come across that ship? I know there was a theory that, hey, it used to be Zeb's and Zeb gave it to him because that's the type of ship he prefers to fly. But now we know that it's actually payment for his services. Yeah. We know that it's essentially redone and it's stock. He sounds like a car guy. Because his car, like when you get a stock car, my car's just stock. That's what it sounds like. And when he used that word stock, you heard a couple of chuckles in the background because, I guess car guys understood what that meant.
Well, and Lucas was a car guy. So, I mean, that's really where a lot of it comes from.
Exactly. I think that it was that was a good scene. I think leading up to them coming to now Hutta, I think that was a good way to get us there, introducing the new Razor Crest and then having Mando and Grogu take off.
Yeah. In the comments, Anakin Skywalker, Goji 75 Eclipse, like maybe the longest name we've ever had here. It says, long have I waited. And hey, David's with us, says, does Grogu find a new knob to play with or something different for the new ship? I think it's going to be the knob thing. It feels like because they marketed that and you could buy the figures and dolls with the knobs already coming with them, like the one I've got back here behind me. I can't point. that came with the knob. So I would assume that that's going to be a running gag, or we'll revisit that gag where he's got the knobs here. All right, so they take off. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that's something that's iconic, but for the Mandalorian. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be the knob.
Yeah, and it seems like they got to do something a little different with it. So maybe they will. But so they fly to Nal Hutta. They arrive there at the Twins' fortress. As they're coming in, they're escorted by a couple of Hutt ships that bring them in. They ask him who he is. He says, "I'm here by invitation of the Twins." And he's talking to Zeb, and he tells Zeb they've got a lot of firepower here. And I think it's Zeb or Mando says, "Yeah, it looks like they hired the droid Gatra." So the remnants, what I'm assuming, of the droid army, or maybe some from the Clone Wars. I'm not exactly sure on that, but if it's a Gatra, then it is like remnants of something, like a lineage of something. But that's why we see these fantastic droids with capes wearing clothing, which it's funny as heck, but I still love. And they eventually land. He gets out and he heads down into the depths of the Hutt colony. This was interesting because we've never actually seen that live screen, of course. I don't even know in Clone Wars if we got to see like the colony and what it looks like. I remember in the comics they covered this, and I don't recall if it was the same there or not. But if you imagine, if you've ever had like an ant farm or like an earthworm farm, that's kind of what it was. It was pretty gross. Like there was huts like just slithering around and going across and going into tunnels. They were kind of off into the dirt on the side, laying on top of each other. It was really disturbing.
If I could interject here,
go ahead.
I'm going to take it a little bit more PG-13-ish here, not with language, but just with a description.
Visuals? Okay.
It reminded me of the Hutt version of Caligula.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on in those coves with those huts? I don't want to know. Please keep on walking.
And I think it was meant to make you feel uncomfortable because Mando, as they're walking through it, he's looking over, everything's gross and disgusting, but he's telling Yoda, he's telling baby Grogu that the Hutts use violence and treachery to maintain control. He says, we may be their guests, but we're not safe here. And eventually they make their way to the Twins. The door opens up. We get to see the two sentry droids that are turned off. We know those are the two droids that Mando is going to fight at some point, and Grogu ends up taking one of them down based on the trailer. So spoiler alert, it's out there already. So again, everything we're talking about has already been seen. But they're kind of turned off. They're just sitting outside that door. I love the fact that it's got the Hutt logo, the symbol on the front of it. It opens up. They walk in. The female twin starts talking first, and I forget what exactly she says. She basically says something like, "We're glad you're here, Mando." They're almost kind of kissing his butt at first. It's interesting because there was a lot of people after the trailer came out that when we hear the male twin say something like, we're going to kill him too, or whatever, he's speaking basic or English, a lot of folks are like, this is so stupid. They can't do, Hutts don't speak Huttese and they've ruined it and they're just speaking English and blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not exactly what happens. They actually start speaking Huttese, and it's translated down at the bottom. At some point, the male flips over to English, right? So they do both. And it may just be because, maybe they don't know how much Mando really knows Huttese. I don't know what their explanation is, but they did preserve that for the purists, if you will, from George Lucas. So that's in there. They switch over to English, and essentially what he tells them is, he says something along the lines of like, "We're glad that you're working for us, Mando." And Mando's like immediate, like, "I'm not working for you." He says, "I don't work for you. I work for the New Republic. I'm told that you can lead us to the Imperial fugitive, Commander Coin. I understand your nephew, Rhoda the Hutt, is being held as a fugitive." And then Rhoda, or the male, starts talking. He says something like, "Think about what it would be like if your little one went missing." And he's looking at Grogu. That's foreshadowing, right, to what's going to happen a little bit later, at least that threat that they're going to do something to Grogu a little bit later. How they get there, we don't know yet because it's not part of this first 25 minutes. Mando says, "Hey, do you have a picture of him?" And this is the part that got everybody laughing because the image that comes up, it's a holo, but it's almost the identical image from the Clone Wars of Stinky as a baby that they show. And it was, I mean, most of the audience in there were pretty hardcore fans. I mean, they'd already seen it. You know, you probably weren't there unless you were a big Mando fan or a Star Wars fan, but that got a huge laugh. And I was chuckling as all get out when they showed that, because it looks like it's pulled right from the Clone Wars.
No, it was the same in my theater. You know, those that knew, and they actually went ahead and chuckled. But we had some people that were like, what's going on? You know,
Right,
obviously they hadn't seen the first Clone Wars movie and didn't know that, hey, that's where that character originated from.
Yep. He says, okay, I'll rescue your nephew, and walks out unceremoniously. Like it just kind of cuts. And they basically, he tells him, by the way, he asks where he's being held. And they mentioned that he's on a planet called Shikari. And that's when he says, okay, I'll rescue your nephew. And he takes off, and we cut to the Razor Crest flying into the Shikari system, into the outer rim of the Shikari planet. Before he gets out, Zeb tells him that you're no longer under the jurisdiction of the New Republic. And he says, I can't send an X-Wing strike if you need it, kind of thing. And Mando responds back like, yeah, I know, we know it, we get it, we've done this before, kind of thing, you know. And so then he heads out and flies out. So he jumps out of the ship, ignites the backpack with Grogu on him. And that's when this music plays. And I love this music. It was like a synth wave kind of, on Demo's kind of sound again that we got, which is really cool. But he's flying to that music as he's coming down into Shikari. And Shikari looks similar to like a Nar Shaddaa, or the underbelly of Coruscant, right? A lot of lights, a lot of flashy stuff. It looks like a Vegas, if you will, kind of thing. Lawlessness exists everywhere. Maybe even Janix that we got from Maul Shadow Lord, similar to that. In some ways. So they fly into that, and they land right outside the Coliseum. He's kind of walking up towards the Coliseum, and that's when he sees like the hot dog stand or whatever, the Martin Scorsese hot dog stand. What did we say his name was? Jim, George, John?
No, it was Shoot.
Shoot, that's his name. No, I don't remember what it is, but
what's the name of it? I don't.
Somebody will remember.
Hugo? Is it Hugo?
Hey, I think it's Hugo. Yeah, I think you're right.
And then it's like the sandwich was called like Scorned or Scorched Beef or something like something right, weird. Yeah. He's like, I'll take again, I think it's what it's called. I don't remember, but a scorched beef for the kid.
Yeah, and they spend an elaborate amount of time, money on the effects to show how quickly a 4-armed being can make a sandwich. Because I'm watching and going, oh yeah, that'd be cool if I had 4 arms. I could grill over here and put some mayo on the bread over here. But they really spent a lot of time on making a sandwich. He makes a sandwich, and then he tells him that he's looking for information, and he says, I'm trying to find the huts. And that's when we get that whole sequence. I think we've seen this, or again in the trailers. But he's like, "Hey, don't be talking about the huts. You can't say that around here. You know what? Never mind. Take the sandwich. It's on me. Don't worry about it." And this is after Mando shows him the credits, because he hands down whatever monetary amount he's got. Hugo's like, "Hey, for that amount, I'll tell you anything you want to know." But then once he mentions the huts, he's like, "Nope, sorry, store, shop's closed, got to go," kind of thing. And then when he finally says, "I'm looking for Road to the Hut," Hugo starts laughing because he realizes that he's literally right in front. Like he points over to the right, and you see the poster there, which, by the way, we broke down, I think, when we did that second trailer for Mando, or maybe it was the first trailer. We mentioned that for a split second, you could see the poster that said Road to the Hut on it before it panned away. He points to that poster and says, he's right here. Like he's in that Coliseum kind of thing as a gladiator or whatever. And he says, everybody knows Road to the Hut. That guy's a monster. Is exactly what he says. Then we cut immediately, and this is the last sequence, the last scene. Mm-hmm. Road to the Hut is fighting a humanoid person, like a human, inside that Coliseum that we've seen. This human's got like some, I don't know, looks like leather armor on. Yeah. He's got like a spear with like 2 heads on it or something like that.
Yeah, it's an axe. And
was it an axe? Okay.
Yeah, it was an axe. And what I want to interject here is there were several, probably like 2 or 3 people in my screening that said, "Is he fighting He-Man?" because the gladiator looked like he was dressed like He-Man,
Oh,
and they even had the axe with that looked like the two sickled axe that He-Man carries, and I heard like, yeah, is he fighting He-Man? So that I thought that was funny when if you're a Gen X person, you everyone knows who He-Man is. So
that's
anyway,
Kevin Durant's the actor on that. Oh,
no,
if that's true. That's cool. I didn't know that.
oh, I would think that Hugo is more Wimby-ish because
No, no,
he's all
no, not
long.
no. Kevin Durant's the he's another actor. I think I guess they have the same name now that I say that. He's the guy that played what was it, The Blob, or I don't know, one of the guys in Deadpool. He's been in some other movies that I've seen. If that's him, that's actually pretty neat that it was. But either way, he's fighting this guy.
The gladiator is Kevin Durant.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, not
okay.
not the
Okay,
NBA
that
star,
guy.
but the actor.
Not
Yeah.
the NBA star. Okay.
That's cool if it is him. I didn't see it long enough to catch it. But so anyways, they're about to fight, and they kind of go at each other a few times, and then suddenly Rod of the Hutt just like he jumps up and then belly flops on him, and you hear this big squish sound like he's just splattered that guy underneath him. Rod of the Hutt then, and by the way, this entire time, Mando and Grogu are in the stands. They're in there. Grogu's got his little popcorn bucket and he's chowing down on popcorn, and they're watching this whole fight go on. He smashes that other person. He raises his hands like we've seen in the trailer. Everybody, the audience goes crazy and they're cheering his name. And that's when Mando says his last line where he says, "He doesn't seem like a prisoner to me." So that's kind of throws a wrench in everything because you're right. Like, we're led to believe up to this point that he's being held here against his will, almost like he's a slave, a gladiator, a slave. And that could still be the case. But he seems to be really infamous and really enjoying the fact that he's here. And there's no signs that he's here against his will. And that's where it cuts. So it ends right there. It went directly into footage of the movie. And a lot of that footage was stuff that we've already seen. Right. It's basically piecemealed from the first two trailers. They have the main theme playing or whatever. And then it ended with, coming in IMAX the May 22nd or whatever. And so that's where it kind of ends. So I mean, it's when that ended, I really wanted to know, like, what's next? Like, where does this go from here? Because, we've got a couple things now. We know that he's after Commander Coin. We know that Commander Coin is key in some way to what the Empire is up to. We know that he's not going to get the information on where Commander Coin is until he's released or freed Rod of the Hutt, apparently, allegedly. And the Hutts seem to be enjoying the fact that they have a Mandalorian working for him. I didn't really cue in on that much, but for me, it felt like when they were talking to him, it almost felt like they were trying to manipulate him or make him feel like, hey, you're working for us kind of thing. And he's very, very adamant that he was not. You couple all that with what we already know with the fact that Embo shows up and eventually he does go back to the twins. They remove his mask. By the way, I don't know if you saw the recent one just a couple of days ago. They released an extended footage of that scene where the mask comes off. And he tells him, we know about your culture and we know what happens when you take your mask off, kind of thing, how shame or whatever it is he says.
Yep.
So we know that's going to happen. We know that Mando fights Rod of the Hutt. We've seen that footage where they're fighting in the combat gladiator arena kind of thing. So it's weird. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this kind of comes together. And ultimately, this MacGuffin of Commander Coin, like, what is it? Like, what are we leading up to? Is that we're going to be the first pieces to Thrawn or not? But yeah, overall, it was a great 25 minutes. Again, if this is indicative of where the movie's going to be, or the caliber of the movie, I think we're in for a really, really good time and going to be pretty happy with the outcome. What do you think?
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I thought, again, just to echo what you just said, is if the rest of the movie is like this, obviously, I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. I just I had to teleport out and back in. Obviously what I was saying is some things are going to have to pay off because now they've kind of introduced a couple of story plot points that it's going to have to pay off really well. But I think it's not anything that is going to be super duper complex to unravel. And I think, at its heart, feels like a Star Wars movie. It's a different Star Wars movie, but it because we haven't seen lightsabers and anything of that like that nature yet. But it still feels like a Star Wars movie because we have the starships, we have the action, we have the blasters, we have the aliens. We have the missions that these characters have to go on. It feels like a Star Wars movie. It's a great start, and we have 8 days before we can see the complete movie, and I'm excited to see what we get in 8 days.
Yeah, and it looks like the sales projections are starting to tick up.
Yes.
Which I would have hoped, given the freaking tsunami of advertising and marketing that's happening right now. I mean, I've seen the Mandalorian and Grogu show up now for, just all kinds of commercials that I was not expecting to see. I want to say, was it golf or NBA? I forget.
It was golf. It was La Liga.
La Liga, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're really stretching out there. I mean, if this was the winter or fall, it would be Monday Night Football. I mean,
right.
ABC or I should say Disney is really using its other properties, whether it's ABC, ESPN, National Geographic, to promote this movie, which is great. I wish they would have done that maybe a few weeks earlier, but I have some solace in knowing that the marketing push that they're doing right now is causing those metric
Pre-sales
numbers to go up a bit, pre-sales to go up a little bit. So that bodes well for the movie. But yeah, don't wait till less than 40 days till the movie comes out. Let's start this up a little bit sooner, and all it will do is just increase the hype for this movie, and more people will see it. So, but yeah, the marketing blitz is in full swing, and we're getting Mando and Grogu from everywhere. Whether it's again the properties of Disney, to Burger King, to Alamo Drafthouse with their infamous pint glasses, to all of the theater chains and their infamous popcorn buckets that really don't serve a purpose to eat popcorn out of.
Yeah.
It's all coming at us. And I hope what it does what it's supposed to do, hype this movie up so that it can come out and have a great opening weekend and have a long, profitable run in the theaters.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to it. Like the hype meter is certainly starting to kind of climb for me as well. I think, with 8 days left, I think I'm more excited about seeing it in the IMAX format. Mm-hmm. Again, if you're trying to get tickets and it's already sold out, get the ticket to see the regular version, but come back and see the IMAX version of it again. I know it's expensive. I don't want to take anybody with belittle that in any way, because IMAX tickets are very, very expensive. I think for 2 people, it's up to like $45.
Yeah,
now.
It's expensive. Yeah.
So I get it. Right. But if you have the option, check out the IMAX version. It does make a difference. And with Star Wars, just seeing Star Wars for the first time in full IMAX format was a treat, even if it was just that first 25 minutes. So I can't wait to see the rest of it. But all right, well, we'll end it there. Thank you guys for joining us here on this 25-minute breakdown. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope we didn't spoil too much, or maybe we did just enough for you. I don't think this really takes away. I mean, there's so many answers that are unanswered, that I think it's safe to say that if you've seen the first 25 minutes, or even if you've watched all of the footage that's already come out from all the marketing stuff and trailers and TV spots, you still don't know, essentially you still don't know almost an hour and 40 minutes of this movie, right? That's still unknown. You have bits and pieces of it, but we don't know where it's going to go. So I wouldn't feel like, hey, this whole thing is spoiled because of it, but hopefully you guys enjoy this, and we'll go out and see it too.
Sure. And we'd like to thank the folks that joined us in the chat tonight. We have One Up versus CPU 64, Super Sham, who's my guy Joel, my girl Paisley, my Star Wars guys, your brother Alex, Strong Mustachio, who is actually my good friend Vanessa, that David Lozano. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go. Exactly. And don't take any rogue elbows. Anakin Skywalker, Goji 75 Eclipse, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us tonight and supporting us on the show.
Yep. All right, before we get out of here, just a reminder that this Sunday, if you're a Patreon member, we're going to be doing a special From a Certain Point of View episode where we want you guys to come on with us and talk about your favorite top 3 moments of Maul Shadow Lord. We will also do honorable mentions in there. So it'll be, 3, 2 honorable mentions. And then we'll talk about our top moment in season 1 of Shadow Lord. That's coming this Sunday, 9 p.m. Central, Patreon exclusive. If you're a Patreon member, please reach out to me and let me know that you want to jump in there. We have a couple slots left open for that. May 17th, we have the final hype show. That'll be our show to bring you all the information that you need going into the movie. We'll have our predictions as well, talk about what we're most excited about. That'll be a lot of fun to kind of really break the seal on that and then head into the movie from there. That'll also be when we start handing out our posters. So if you haven't seen at the very top, we talked about these. These are the posters that were handed out for the 25-minute preview. We got a number of these to hand out, and we will give those away. The only thing you need to do is send us questions to ask or answer on air. We'll randomly pick someone before the show. And if you're a winner, we'll mail this in a poster tube and you'll get it and you can have glory for that. So that's May 24th.
Oh, go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, that's the last thing we've got. Yeah.
One thing I want to also throw out there is look for it coming soon. The next entry in the Road to Celebration series, we'll be talking about the aftermath of the ticket sales and the hotel sales. So while we don't have it on the schedule yet, we haven't forgotten about that series. It was crazy popular. And now that we've gotten over what's essentially the most critical and first hurdle of attending Star Wars Celebration, we'll talk about the aftermath of the ticket sales and hotel sales. Look for that show being scheduled coming up here real soon.
Yeah. Essentially, it's an emotional hangover is what we all have now from that.
Exactly. I don't know if we call it an emotional hangover or PTSD, but it could be both.
Yeah. I think it could be both. Yeah, both can be true. So, all right, we'll leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. On behalf of myself, Chris, thank you guys, and we will see you all here on the next episode.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.